today. So look at what I'm doing. I've got this little bit of water and a little bit of black blue paint, yeah. I've got in my hand this little piece of charcoal. And that's what I've been doing since I arrived here earlier today. So I did the piece right behind you for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. This I just started on today. So this piece will probably be in that condition maybe by the end of tomorrow. And then Friday, I'll do my last finishing touches on these walls here. And sometimes people try to figure out, what is it that you're doing here? Well, it's building up of many different layers, almost like an archaeological dig in a way. An archaeological dig, one culture leaves its mark, another culture comes along and utilizes what the former culture left behind. So I'm actually marking on top of my painting that was there. So it's kind of many different layers, but it also looks as if something is being broken up in places, almost like the Earth, when it began to form the continents, it broke apart. Pangea, yes. Yeah. And so it's almost like tectonic plates in a way. Right. So it's all these formations, maybe of a new landscape in the land. So that's kind of what I'm playing with. Or those are kind of some of the ideas that I'm working through on this piece. But this is how it initially begins. This whole wall here begins with the little bit of marking. And what I do is the first day is kind of the most important day, because I just try to get from one end to the other end of the wall space so that there is no more white wall that's the dominant color in this piece. And it's making up shapes and forms, and gradually it'll make sense. But right at this point, it still is, you know, we're not quite sure what this is all leading to. But I do know that I start kind of low, so it starts to build, almost like an architecture building a structure. He lays down the foundation and it builds from that. So it's all these shapes and forms moving higher and higher. And it almost seems as if it's going to break through the ceiling and continue to go into the next area, which, you know, that's our imagination, yeah, is up there. So any questions that you'd like to know about any of this? Do you know who this person is on my t-shirt? No. You? Yes. He got it right. He gets my. Do you know what the word ephemeral means? Ephemeral means temporary, that it doesn't last.
Are you holding a gun?
It's a water gun.
Oh, I'm making sure. No gang.
It's a water gun. Yeah, it looked like it's like film from the 1940s or something. But the word ephemeral means temporary, something that is not going to last. These two walls are going to be completely whitewashed once the show is over. So they'll only exist for 2 months, and then it goes back to being a white wall. So those are the conditions that I work with when I choose to work on site inside of a museum. And I get to travel to a lot of different cities, so I get to meet a lot of different people and do these on-site pieces. So in a sense, you become the collectors of the piece, because you take it here inside your imagination. Or you can take photographs and document it like other people have been doing during the course of actually working on this piece. Questions? Yes?
What inspires you to draw?
What inspires me to draw and to paint and to make art? Everything. When I was a kid, I was the library kid. I grew up in East Los Angeles, right on Whittier Boulevard and Gage Avenue. There was a library down the block, so I was the library kid. I went in and I wanted to read from A to Z. Luckily, I was stopped by the librarian because she knew I was checking out every book with the letter A at the beginning. And eventually, you know, I was a kid that grew up with TV set as my babysitter. I grew up with a single parent. So the TV set was always on. And one day, I happened to switch on this movie that was a very bad, bad, bad movie. It was called Devil Girl from Mars. It was this woman with a British accent. When the characters in the movie would ask her, "Where are you from?" Mars. She was, I don't know. All of a sudden it clicked into my head, somebody made this. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to make things. So even from something that most people would disregard and think unimportant or stupid, those are the things I tend to gravitate to and pull something. So I'm still, well, I'll give you an example. In my work, there's a woman that I paint, and she's always wearing a black dress, kind of like Devil Girl from Mars. And we never see her from the front. We only see her from the back. So I gave her a name that kind of matches up with mythological characters like Medea, Medusa, Electra. Well, mine will be called Tormenta. So do you know what Tormenta means? Storm, yes. So very melodramatic character. So we never see her from the front. She's never visible from the front. She's only seen from the back. I gave her this black dress with a V back to it. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
That dress, that classic dress. Well, I wanted something timeless. Now, there was a designer in the 1930s. Her name was Valentina. Valentina said, "Never dress for the season, dress for the century." That means find something that crosses over time. That black dress could be turn of the century, and it could be the present. So it's one of those outfits that has a classical feel to it. So Tormenta is this image of this woman with her back to the viewer. Now, years later, after I had been doing this for several years, a composer, a friend of mine, wrote a piece of music called the Tormenta Cantata. Now, he wrote it for this group called the Cronus String Quartet. They're on one side of the stage. A soprano is wearing the same dress. She has her back to the audience. But I'm in the middle with a wall that's 12 feet by 8 feet. I think this is probably 13 feet. So 8 feet is maybe about here, and 12 feet across. He wrote it for me so that my brush, like this, had a microphone attached to it. So you heard the brush going ch, 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 as I painted. Show you. Like that would mean a sound. That another sound. You can barely hear it here, but if you had a microphone attached to it, you would hear that the brush is amplified. That would be loud.